After 60, some men make a surprising decision. They don't chase marriage anymore. Not because they don't believe in love, but because life teaches them something different after decades of experience. And the reasons are more complex than most people think. In today's world, more senior men are staying single after divorce or loss. Some choose not to remarry at all, while others remain open but cautious. But this isn't a simple story of giving up on love. It's a mix of experience, priorities, and personal peace. Let's break it down. Reason number 1, peace becomes a priority. When you look at the psychology of a man in his 20s or 30s, his brain is practically hardwired for conquest, building, and expansion. He is in the acquisition phase of life. He wants the career, the house, the family, and the partner to build it all with. But as we age, our psychological and physiological needs undergo a massive shift. In psychology, there is a concept within Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development called integrity versus despair. This is the final stage of human development, occurring from around age 65 onwards. In this stage, a man looks back on his life. If he has successfully navigated his earlier years, he seeks wisdom, closure, and most importantly, tranquility. For many men over 60, their nervous systems have been through the ringer. They've survived decades of corporate stress, economic downturns, raising children, and the intense emotional turbulence of previous relationships. The simple truth: their tolerance for drama has plummeted to zero. Marriage, even a good one, requires compromise, negotiation, and a constant merging of two lives. It requires emotional labor. A senior man who has lived through a contentious divorce or a stressful, high-conflict marriage remembers the sleepless nights. He remembers the arguments over finances, in-laws, and minor inconveniences. When he finally finds himself living in a quiet house, where everything is exactly where he left it, where he can wake up at 5 a.m. or sleep until 10 a.m. without answering to anyone, that peace becomes intoxicating. It becomes his most guarded asset. To invite a new marriage into his life is to risk shattering that peace. He still wants love, but he refuses to trade his hard-won peace of mind to get it. Reason number 2, financial security matters more than before. It might sound unromantic, it might sound cynical, but when we look at the reality of aging, romance has to make room for pragmatism. The gray divorce phenomenon, divorces that occur among couples over the age of 50, has doubled since the 1990s. When a man goes through a divorce in his 50s or 60s, the financial devastation is profound. In your 30s, if you lose half your assets, you have 30 years to work, hustle, and rebuild. But at 65, the chessboard is different. The game is in its final moves. Men over 60 are often living on fixed incomes, pensions, or retirement accounts they spent 40 years bleeding for. They have a legacy to think about. They have children and grandchildren they want to leave an inheritance to. From a purely psychological and legal standpoint, getting legally married again introduces a massive variable of risk. Entering into a legal contract that intertwines assets, properties, and debts late in life triggers a deeply ingrained survival anxiety. Many of these men absolutely want a partner. They want to pay for dinners, take vacations together, and share their wealth with a woman they care about. But they want to do it on their terms. By avoiding the legal binding of marriage, they protect their children's inheritance and their own survival. They aren't hoarding money. They are protecting their sense of safety. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if your base level of security is threatened, you cannot reach the higher levels of love and belonging. For the senior man, financial independence is his safety net. Reason number 3, life experience changes how love feels. When we are young, society and biology teach us that love is a fiery, all-consuming passion. We are influenced by the media, by hormones, and by an evolutionary drive to mate and reproduce. Young love is a loud, chaotic storm. But as men cross the threshold into their 60s, their psychological definition of love evolves. Psychologist Robert Sternberg developed the triangular theory of love. He noted that relationships are built on passion, intimacy, and commitment. In youth, passion is the driving force, but in our senior years, the fire of passion gives way to the warmth of companionate love. A man over 60 has already played the game. He has chased, he has conquered, he has experienced the dizzying highs of the honeymoon phase, and he has survived the crushing lows of heartbreak. He sees through the illusion that love must be a constant, dramatic fireworks display. Because his definition of love has changed, the vehicle for that love must change too. Marriage is traditionally the vehicle for building a family and merging two lives into a single unit. But if he no longer needs to build a family, and if he no longer craves the fiery, dramatic merger of two souls, the structure of marriage feels obsolete. He doesn't want a wife to manage his life, do his laundry, or be his better half. He's already a complete whole. What he desires is a fellow traveler, someone to walk alongside him, to share a meal, to discuss a book, and to enjoy the sunset with. He wants intimacy without the heavy, structural expectations that the title of husband brings. Reason number 4, companionship is no longer one size fits all. Society has long perpetuated the myth that if you don't get married, you will grow old and die alone. But men over 60 are proving this completely false by redefining what companionship looks like. Enter the concept of LAT, living apart together. This relationship model is surging in popularity among seniors, particularly in parts of Europe and increasingly in North America. In a LAT relationship, two people are in a deeply committed, monogamous, loving partnership, but they maintain their own separate residences. Psychologically, this is a masterstroke for the senior man. It allows him to have his cake and eat it too. He gets the emotional intimacy, the physical affection, and the joy of companionship. But he never loses his sanctuary. He never has to compromise on his interior decorating, his sleep schedule, or his alone time. Furthermore, men over 60 have often built a robust network of social capital. They have old army buddies, golf partners, friends from their careers, and deep bonds with their adult children and grandchildren. Their emotional cup is already full. When a man has a rich, multi-layered social life, he doesn't need to place the massive burden of being his everything onto one woman. Marriage was designed to be the ultimate cure for loneliness, but a modern senior man with hobbies, a community, and a peaceful mind isn't lonely. He's liberated. Reason number 5. But not all men think the same. It would be intellectually dishonest to say that every man over 60 hates the idea of marriage. The psychology of senior men is incredibly diverse, and their stance on marriage heavily depends on their past traumas and attachment styles. Sociologists have noticed a fascinating pattern when comparing widowers to divorced men. Widowers, men whose wives have passed away, are actually highly likely to remarry, and they often do it quickly. Why? Because their psychological association with marriage is profoundly positive. To a widower, a wife represents warmth, care, partnership, and joy. When he loses that, the void is agonizing, and he seeks to fill it by recreating the beautiful thing he lost. Divorced men, however, have a vastly different psychological blueprint. Their association with marriage is often tainted by betrayal, arguments, lawyers, and emotional exhaustion. For the divorced man, the stove is hot, and he has burned his hand. He has no desire to touch the stove again. Additionally, we have to look at attachment theory. Men with secure attachment styles might remain open to a second or third marriage if they meet the absolute perfect person, because they naturally trust others. But many men who choose to stay single after 60 have developed what psychologists call dismissive avoidant attachment traits in their later years. They have learned to rely strictly on themselves. They view emotional dependency as a weakness or a liability. For them, staying unmarried isn't just a preference, It's a psychological defense mechanism designed to protect their newly found emotional equilibrium. And now, for a bonus insight. There is an invisible benefit to solo aging that very few people talk about: radical autonomy and late-life self-discovery. From the time a man is a young boy, he is burdened by duty. He's told to get good grades, to get a good job, to provide for his wife, to protect his family, to be the strong oak tree for everyone else to lean on. For 40 years, his life is an endless list of obligations. He is a husband, a father, an employee, a provider. He gives his energy, his time, and his youth to others. It is a noble sacrifice, but a heavy one. When a man reaches 60 and he finds himself unmarried, with the kids grown up and the mortgage paid, something magical happens. For the first time since he was a child, he doesn't owe anybody anything. This phase of life allows a man to ask a question he hasn't had the luxury of asking in decades. What do I actually want? He can travel to Japan on a whim. He can spend all weekend restoring a classic car. He can eat cereal for dinner. He can read philosophy until 3 a.m. He reclaims his individuality. This radical autonomy is the greatest reward of his golden years. To give up this ultimate freedom by signing a marriage certificate and returning to a life of compromise? For many, it's a trade they simply refuse to make. So, if you see an older man who is happily unmarried, don't pity him. Don't assume he is lonely or that he has given up on love. Respect him. He has climbed the mountain, weathered the storms, and finally built a sanctuary. He hasn't lost his heart. He has just finally found his peace. If this video resonated with you, or if you're navigating this phase of life yourself, drop a comment below and share your experience. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dives into the psychology of modern life. Until next time, protect your peace.